So thank you for joining me today. We're going to be talking about working with listings today. And so when I share my screen here, I'll do the introduction if you guys are just joining me for the first time. But as always, if you have questions, comments, anything like that, I typically start out with everybody muted. You're welcome to unmute if you want to interact. It's one of the benefits of attending live. But otherwise, I have you keep yourself muted so that we don't get a lot of background noise or conversations, telephone calls that should be confidential, etc. So if this is your first time joining me, my name is Eric Lee. I'm the principal broker for equity real estate in Utah. I created this training program, the Elite Agent Training Program, and privileged to be able to be here with you guys and do the national training for equity. So if you do have questions, comments, feedback, other things you'd like to see trainings on, you can email me directly at brokerericlee@gmail.com. For the full training program that I have at the online course, it's eliteagenttraining.com. And then I've also got the YouTube channel, Elite Agent Training. So I would encourage you, if you haven't, to go subscribe there, because I do add video content every week with smaller topics than things that we cover in an hour here. So every week, we take a little bite out of the elephant. Last week, we talked about making your ideal week list, okay? Staying organized with your time, putting that into a calendar guide, planning every morning, and holding yourself accountable every evening. So hopefully you guys have been doing that. Let's see, more people jumping in. Does anybody have anything they want to share from their experience doing this? If so, you can unmute yourself. When I'm sharing my screen, I can only see about 5 of you. Okay, I don't see anybody unmuting or anything like that. I really want to encourage you guys to not just be, the thing that comes to mind is a scripture, be doers of the word and not hearers only, okay? I know I'm being cheesy. I'm not comparing myself to the scriptures here, but it is really important that you guys, when you come and you hear some of these things, that you actually put them into play. These are life-changing things. These are things that will help you stay in business. They'll help you be successful. The reason I only do 1 hour training a week on this is because I want you guys to have time to incorporate some of these things into your business. It is not enough to simply hear. I could do a weekend retreat and dump a ton of information on you. I could do a 4 or 5 hour seminar, something like that, but you're not going to have the time to incorporate the concepts that we teach. So my goal here is to help you guys build your business, not just to convey information. So please take the time each week to do some of the homework. Now, I like to start out with a deep thought. This one, I don't know who to attribute it to, but we're all familiar with it. A person doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care. The reason why I bring this thought up when it comes to listings is because one of the greatest mistakes I think that newer agents especially make when it comes to listings is they lean so heavily on their presentation that they're not actually engaging with the people, okay? They show up. And for example, when I started, I was very poor as a brand new agent. And so I'm showing up at my listing presentations with black and white copies, paper clipped together. And I looked down and there was somebody from a big name brokerage who had full color spiral bound presentation there. And I'm thinking, I can't compete with these guys. That presentation probably cost him $25. $1 a page printing it out. I can't compete with that. And then it dawned on me after I continued to see this type of thing is I'm still here. They're still talking to me. That $25 presentation didn't win the business because they continued to interview other agents, and I would start to win the business. And that right there was my eye-opening ceremony where I realized this isn't about your pretty presentation. Now, I will show you how to make a pretty presentation today, but do not let that interfere with your primary job, which is caring about these people, okay? So I hear stories when I go out on listing appointments, and they'll say, you're the third interview we've talked to, or the third agent we've interviewed, and you're the only one to ask to walk through the house. It blows my mind. How can that be? How are we not even bothering to walk through the home before we sit down and tell them what their home is worth? Okay. We need to care better about our people. We provide lots of value. We need to communicate with that. We need to hear their concerns, hear their questions, and do a better job of caring. So some of the things we're going to cover today is what to do prior to the listing appointment to prepare for it, what we do at the listing appointment, post-listing, and then we'll cover some marketing ideas as well. Now, some of the resources and tools that we have, we've got a listing presentation. Now, I'm going to show you my favorite listing presentation today and how to build that. It's in KVCore, which we provide to you. We've got the Equity Marketing Center. If you're not familiar with that, I would recommend becoming so. We've got Loop, which is a great place. I know different states sometimes use different things. Just make sure you're using the software that your broker recommends that you use so that you are current with your software. Here in Utah, we use Loop. And then we've got a 24/7 call capture hotline on all of those listings. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here because I want to share a different one with you really quickly. Let's see here. Okay, okay, what I want to show you first of all is some of the resources that you have available to you. Now, when you go to Elevate and you go on the training tab, this drop down right here, you go down to Elite Agent Training and it brings you to this page. On this page, we have a sample listing presentation. If you don't like KVCore and you're not using KVCore and you want to build your own presentation, but you're not sure of the ingredients that go into it, which we'll cover some of today. Here's a generic listing presentation that you can take. You can get some ideas from it. You can get the basics from it. I'll show you how to build a better one than this, but this is a good basic one that you can copy and paste stuff out of if you need to. The other things that we have when we're working with sellers is task plans. So we've got a listing task plan here and an under contract listing task plan. So what these are used for is anytime you take a new listing, and especially if you're a new agent or even an experienced agent, you should always have a task plan that you follow so that you provide the same high level of service to everybody that you interact with. So if I take a listing and I do a phenomenal job for Andrew, and he's thrilled with me, we have a great experience, and he tells his sister Jennifer about me and says, hey, you should give Eric a call. We had this great experience and he did this and this and this for me, A, B, C, and D. And I go to work for Jennifer and I only do A and D. And she was really excited about B and C, those other services that I provide, but she didn't get that. And then she's sitting there wondering, how come he didn't do this for me? And she goes back to Andrew and says, hey, Andrew, Eric didn't give me the same type of service that he gave you. Now, is Andrew going to refer me out with confidence anymore? No. So not only have I taken somebody that was my ambassador and taken away his confidence in me, I'm not having a great experience with Jennifer, the sister. I've lost 2 sources of referrals simply because I'm not consistent with what I do. So this consistency is very important. And then for you experienced agents, you guys have been around the block, but you're also, you're engaged with things, okay? You're attending the trainings, you're attending the board events, you're networking with other agents. You've been around a while. You'll constantly see new ideas, new things coming up. You're like, you know what? I like that idea. So how many of us, when we see an idea that we like, we grab our closest sticky pad, write down the idea, and then never incorporate it? Are y'all guilty of that sometimes? Hearing good ideas and then not incorporating it into your business? So what you can do is when you've got the task plan, and you say, that's a great idea, you write it on your sticky note. And then at the end of the day, like we talked about last week, when you're putting your manager hat back on, you look at your sticky notes and say, oh, you know what? I had that great idea. I need to actually go add it to my task plan so that everybody that I work with from that point forward gets that extra cool idea, that extra treatment. So now Jennifer calls back Andrew, if I'm operating correctly, and she says, you know what, he did not only A, B, C, and D, but he did this E item that I thought was really cool. And Andrew's like, oh, he didn't even do that for me. That's awesome. Okay. Now Andrew is even more confident in me. Jennifer's confident in me. And all of this comes because I'm actually treating it like a business and I'm operating consistently with what I do. Okay. So that's one of the first things that I wanted to share with you as one of the resources that you have available. The other thing that I'm going to take you to is KVCore. All right. So we talk about presentations here when we're doing listings. And again, I don't want you to lean so heavily on your presentation, but I certainly would like you to have a better presentation than my black and white paper clipped presentation that I used. Okay. So I'm going to minimize my Zoom's panel here a little bit so I don't see a lot of you so that I can interact with my screen. So if you do have a question or a comment, just realize I can't see you. So if you're raising your hand or anything, just unmute yourself and draw my attention that way. So in here, if we're using KVCore and you go over to the side, so if we scroll up, we've got, where we can keep our notes and stuff. But if we scroll down a little bit over here on the right-hand side, there's this Core Present. All right, so I can build a presentation here. So what I did is I put in my old address in here for this test contact. And when I click this to build a presentation, it brings me over to here. And it had basically created all this in, I don't know, 3 minutes. It asked me a couple of questions. It pulled most of the information already from county records. I verified square footage. I verified how many bedrooms I had. And that was basically it. And I want to take you through this presentation really quickly just to show you what you can do very quickly, very simply with KVCore. All right. So if I were sitting down with somebody, and I could also, I can share this with them so that they can watch it from their own computer, or I can sit down with them and, and actually print it out and go through it with them. Some of the things that I like about this is, first of all, I've got the value of an agent. Okay. Why am I the right fit? So it goes over some different statistics here. The nice thing about this, presentation, if I send it electronically, is it's interactive with them. So this talks about the home selling process, right? And the reason I'm taking some time to go through this with you today is because you'll see that for part of my training, as I teach you guys the components of a listing presentation, if you don't have one already that you've gotten built, this has all the components in it. Like, you don't have to go and build things from scratch. They're already here. Okay. So you've got the home selling process built in here. You've got pricing misconceptions, where people are going to find different prices, why some of those things aren't necessarily the best ideas. We've got a little geographic map of the different properties that it's pulling from, and it talks about a comparable property analysis and what that is. It helps identify and analyze a property's value based on sales of comparable homes and market trends. These are all concepts that people don't understand. Maybe they're living in a 40-year-old home, but there was a vacant lot across the street that just got built and developed, and they're thinking, hey, that home just sold for $700,000. I think my home's worth $700,000. I might be interested in selling because the home right across the street from me just sold for $700,000. It's not a comparable property. It's 40 years newer. Okay. So these are concepts that we need to be educating our clients with. And then the other thing that this has is it has kind of an outline of what your home is worth, and average of pending comps down here, the closest active one, the most recent active averages. It's got this cool little timeline, and I can click on different things here, trends, features. So I can click on this and I can interact with that part of it as well a little bit. Outliers, I can get rid of some of the outliers with it. So there's some interactive ability with this online. This is something that I talked about in my presentation, the importance of pricing it correctly. Some people are very visually, they respond better with graphs and charts and pictures and things like that. Other people are great at just hearing the words, seeing the words, and they're processing information, but people are built differently. So I do like to include a couple of graphs like this so that they can, so that it appeals to different people of different backgrounds. All right. So then you've got your market assessment. If the market is fresh or stale, we were just talking about this with our market earlier, that we're fairly flat right here currently. And then you can go over your marketing plan with them, and we'll go over some details of that later as well. Some of the stuff that KVCore in particular does, and then a thank you with all of your information down here. Okay. So I wanted to share that with you, and then we'll jump back to our actual PowerPoint. But I wanted to do that so that you guys can see when I say resources and tools, they're pretty cool. Now, mind you, these are things that we're providing to you free of charge. That KVCore typically is $600 a month. If you were to get that version that we provide to our agents, the Equity Marketing Center, that's a separate subscription. On top of that, Loop, we're providing that for free as well. The 24/7 hotline, anybody that calls the number on your sign, those leads are automatically generated and go to you. Now, mind you, we tried, KVCore originally said, hey, we can get our programming to work with that hotline. It didn't work. And so they were never able to fulfill that. So instead, we went back and we provide also all of our agents with the, oh, now I just barely had it on my mind and it slipped my mind. The Pro Agent websites. So we provide them all with the Pro Agent websites, that 24/7 hotline. Anybody that calls that number on your sign is routed into your Pro Agent website. And then if you are using KVCore, then you can push those leads from Pro Agent over to KVCore, or many of you just like to work directly out of Pro Agent websites, and that's fine too. I'm not here to convince you that one software is better than another. Okay. All right. Let's get into the nitty gritty of the work. What do we need to do prior to the listing appointment? The biggest thing right now is we need to do some information gathering. So we're going to have a conversation with our clients and we're going to talk to them about their house. So if I think somebody is interested in selling, I need to have the conversation. Tell me a little bit about your house, bedrooms, bathrooms, year built, things like that. There's a lot of things they don't know. Okay. But this is important for you to find out what they think they know. For example, they might call something a bedroom because they use it as a bedroom, but it doesn't have a window or a closet. So technically it can't be called that. That's an opportunity that we'll have to educate them on how that works. Okay. Some of the older homes that we have around, they don't have a high enough basement to be considered living space, but they stick their kids down there because the kids don't mind it. That's an opportunity for us to have a conversation with them, but we do want to know what they think about it. Okay. Next thing that we need to do is we need to check the MLS for previous listings. Now, I'll quite often get phone calls from agents saying, I know this home was listed before, I just can't find it. And typically what's happening is they're not accounting for user error, or sometimes it's not even user error, but I've actually seen city boundaries change, like they're right on that boundary line and things will change a little bit. So, but I have seen people also purposefully list it and say that it was in a different area than it was because they thought it was more prestigious. So there's user error that's innocent, there's user error that's not so innocent, and then there's things that just change. So typically what I'll do is I'll go in, I'll put in the house number and the county, and that will narrow it down to 40 or 50 listings. And then I can go through and I can see, and I don't check whether it's active, under contract, sold. I don't check any of those boxes, because if it's active, I shouldn't be talking to them, right? I should find that out right away, that I'm talking with somebody that's actively listed with somebody else, and I should cease contact with them. So I like to see the entire history. The thing that does is it gives me a little bit more information, but again, some of that information could be wrong. Remember, at the bottom of every MLS listing, it says information deemed reliable, but not guaranteed. And I've had homes where, in fact, sometimes I'll pull up an example in this class. It was another home of mine where I look at it and it had been listed 4 or 5 times. 3 out of the 5 times had different lot size. And it wasn't in Hawaii where my lot was growing because of volcanic activity. That wasn't the situation at all. Just realtors had put in a different lot size 3 out of the 5 times it was listed. So there is a lot of user error. So beware of that. What you find on the MLS isn't necessarily the truth, but between what they tell us, what the MLS tells us, and then we're going to check title, we should have a pretty good idea of what's happening. So for example, if I asked you guys, how many of you know what year your house was built? Would you all know right off the top of your head? And a lot of times somebody's like, yep, I'm the only owner. I bought it brand new in 2021. Did you buy it in January or February of 2021? Because it could have been built and recorded December of 2020, right? So you swear you're the only owner. You moved in January 2020. You remember very clearly, it was right after the new year. You were so excited. It's not the year the house was built. So when you go to check title, you get a lot of information. In fact, when we talk about different pitfalls that agents fall into, a lot of that can be avoided if we would not skip this step early on. Like, we should be having this information right up front. Okay, I'm checking title. It looks like the home's in a trust. Could you have a copy of the trust there for me to review when I come over to visit with you? That's going to tell us who needs to sign. We're going to need a copy of it for the title company at closing. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to close, because they're going to need to verify this, right? Everybody that is going to show up at closing that this trust says needs to sign should be signing all of the paperwork all along the way, the listing agreement, the purchase contract. So we need to have that right up front. Okay, I'm looking at title, and I've got a meeting set up. Andrew, I'm just picking on you today because you're at the top of my list here that I see on my panel. So Andrew, I've got this appointment to meet with you, but it looks like on title's in Andrew and Jennifer's name. And Andrew's like, oh yeah, we're getting a divorce. We're separated right now. Okay, is Jennifer going to be there? By the way, I don't know who Jennifer is. I'm not putting Andrew's sister or anything else on the line here, so I'm just making up names. And he says, hey, we're getting a divorce. Is she going to be there? No, it's not really civil right now, so I just want to talk to you about this. Okay, now we know we need to be a little bit careful. Hey, could we do it Zoom? You don't have to be in the same room. I can do a presentation via Zoom, but I have a fiduciary duty to the owners of the home to give you both the exact same information, right? And I'm going to tell both of them, I don't have sidebar conversations. I know you guys are hurting right now. I've been through it. I get it. But in this capacity, even if I am Andrew's friend, I'm not acting as Andrew's friend here. I'm acting as your real estate agent. So if you share things with me that you think should be confidential, don't. Because I'm not having confidential conversations with one or the other. I'm not taking sides. I'm here to sell your home. Now that should give both of them confidence. Okay. But that's something that I find out because I check title. All right. If there's a power of attorney involved, because maybe it's active duty military or something like that, these are the things that I find out. I can also get your build. I can get a rough idea of square footage, which helps me see if the MLS is accurate or what they told me about their home is accurate. But between these three things, I'm gathering a lot of information. None of these take a lot of time, by the way. These are all very simple things to do. I could probably do all of these things in less than an hour. All right. So getting prepared for the listing appointment, I do need to take this time and I need to gather that information. Now I'm going to put that information together with the CMA. Now I just showed you how to build that using KVCore. Okay. We put that information in there. It pulls up all the details for you and it builds a beautiful presentation. So if you don't use KVCore, that's okay. I'll go over here's the ingredients of what you need. You need a marketing plan. All right. And so some of you will ask me, by the way, hey, can you share those slides with us? I don't share the slides. If you see something you like, I am recording this. I'll have it posted to my YouTube channel later today. Or you can take a screenshot of this with your phone or something like that. Okay. But the ingredients of a CMA, you've got to have a marketing plan. You've got to have an explanation of what a market analysis is. Okay. Like, why can't we use that brand new home across the street when our home is 40 years old? That should be a part of your presentation. We need to have a page in there about the subject property and the comparable properties. Okay, here's your subject property. Here's the comparable properties. Here's why they're comparable. And then these three different things are all different graphs. You saw some of them: a market activity, the pricing pyramid, consequences of overpricing. And then we have a price recommendation and then different listing options. And the reason I have different listing options is because this is for me personally, all right? But not everybody's in the same boat. Some people need a lot of help. Some people need just a little bit of help. Some people are going to use me to buy their next home. Some people aren't. I might be able to offer different pricing to different people based on their needs, based on what I'm going to be doing for them, and based on whether or not they're going to be buying from me in the future. I usually give a little bit of a discount. And quite often I'll go into a listing presentation and I almost always take in my exclusive buyer broker agreement as well. And I'll go into a listing presentation and say, okay, we got to sell this home. If you're buying locally and I can help you with that, then we need to be working on both simultaneously. We need to be finding you a replacement home, because that's going to tell you how much money you need down. I mean, we can get you pre-qualified, but you're going to be banking on getting a certain amount out of this house. So we got to be doing both, right? And I'll walk out with the listing agreement and a buyer agency agreement signed at the same time. So these are the ingredients. So we put all these together, include our listing presentation. Now, new agents I see make a mistake where they put in this big introduction about themselves. And guys, I hate to break it to you, but people have, when they're thinking of listing their home, they have two major questions on their mind. And that is, how much am I going to get for my home? That's number one. And number two is, what are you going to do for me to help me get that? And very distant down the line is, who are you and do you like walking on the beach? And how many kids and dogs do you have? Okay. People are concerned about themselves, and especially when it's really big things like the sale of their home, they need to get those things addressed before they have the capacity to really care that you like long walks on the beach. Okay. They'll get to know you over time, but don't right here, especially for new agents, this should be a relief for you. You don't need to say, hey, I have tons of history. The guys that have tons of history will say that, but you don't need to. You can come and say, you know what? And you can readily admit, I'm new to this, but I have an incredible support network. Okay, my broker's on my team, and he's been licensed doing this for over 20 years, and he's on my team because we are technically by law. And one of the things that you'll get because I'm new is you'll get somebody that's going to work crazy hard for you. Like some of these really experienced agents, they're super busy. They don't have the time to do things for you like I'm going to do. Let me tell you some of the stuff that I'm going to do for you. All right. Again, we're going to explain what the CMA is, explain the comps, the recommended price, the pricing options, resolve concerns form. All of that is done before we ever sit down with them. When we actually do get to the time of sitting down with them at the listing appointment, now we're showing up, we're prepared. We have knowledge, okay, even some knowledge that they probably don't have, because I'm not quite sure of the year built for my house. If you ask me that, I'd have to go double check. I can get, within a few years of it. All right. So we're going to show up. We're going to have knowledge already that they don't even have about their own house because we've done our work. Okay. We're going to have them be prepared with copies of trusts or a signed divorce decree that's signed by the judge, whatever it is that we need. We're going to have them prepared for this meeting so that by the time we show up, we already have credibility before we ever even open our mouth. Now, one of the key things about this appointment is that you need to be done in an hour. My first listing presentation was 2.5 hours to a neighbor, and they didn't hire me. My own neighbor didn't hire me. And the reason is very simple. It isn't because they didn't like me. We liked each other a lot. We did barbecues at each other's house, okay? The reason was very simple, and it's not even that they got a feeling that I didn't know what I was doing. It's even simpler than that. It was late. They got little kids. I met them at 7 o'clock. It's 9:30 and I'm still talking. Are you kidding me? Even if we loved you, we wouldn't sign a listing agreement with you right now. We have to get our kids to bed. And it's funny how we don't think about those things when we're meeting with people. So I want you to think about that. Everybody that you meet with is busy. Okay. It could be that they've had a long day and they're just exhausted. It could be that we don't know it, but they got home, dinner was ready, but we showed up right when dinner was ready. They're thinking, man, my food's getting cold back there. It could be that their kids need homework or their kids need to be put to bed. It could be as simple as, hey, my favorite show is starting or the game's starting on TV right now. I really want to do that. It could be any of those things, but all of those things will cause them to tune out to you if you take more than an hour. And I say an hour because it's just how we work. If somebody says, hey, we're coming over to meet with you, we'll block out some time in our head for that meeting. But how many of you guys have been in a meeting that was slated to end at a certain time and the person kept talking over and over and over? Have y'all been in a meeting like that? And they're just hitting their denouement, right? That's a word I only ever got to use in high school English class, but I'm using it again here. They're hitting their high point. Right? It's the height of their story. Doesn't matter. People are getting up and walking out. You've all seen it, right? If you go over time, sorry, we're checked out. So things that have to happen in an hour. We got to meet and greet the family. Going to take 5-10 minutes, maybe. Come in, just say hi to everybody. Right here is where you take charge. They're trying to hire a leader, somebody to lead them through a scary and intimidating process that they don't fully understand. So right here is where you take charge. And they're going to say, hey, do we need to sit at the table, or is the living room okay? No, I'm going to show up with all of my forms in a binder. Okay. It's just a habit of mine, because I know that, like, I'll peek in at the table. If the table's free, great. That's ideal. You know, it's easier to sign forms. It's good to have a conversation. Everybody's gathered around. But if it's been dinner time and they've got to do dishes before that table is clear, no, that's not what we're not going to take 15 minutes to do dishes and stress them out before we can sit down and talk. So if the table's clear, I'll use the table. If not, we can sit in the family room because I'm prepared. I've got my forms. I've got a hard, rigid folder that we can sign forms on, and we can do our presentation in the living room if need be. So I'm going to peek around and say, you know what? We're fine doing it here in the living room. All right. But first, could you take me on a tour of your home? So that's step number 2. We got to walk through the home. Now you can use a clipboard or a binder like I do. If you're a fan of iPads, you can write notes on your iPad, but we're going to be killing 3 birds with this one stone. Number 1, when we do take the listing, we have, well, you can put in more. The MLS will warn you if you go over 255 character spaces in your description, you know, the charming bungalow nestled in the middle of the woods, whatever. That description down at the bottom, we need to take notes for those things, because when you're busy and you got a lot of things going on, you're not going to remember all of the details. So we take notes and we ask them as we walk through, what are some of your favorite features? Because when we post this listing, if we're not mentioning the things that they love, they're going to be a little bit dissatisfied. You know, didn't he see this? I mean, this was cool. We did this ourselves, or whatever it is. What are your favorite features about this home? What are the things that you love? Take notes of those things as you go around. You can also introduce this concept of fixtures. What is included? What is excluded? Is there anything here that is attached that you would want to take with you? Like some heirloom, anything like that. Sometimes it's just chandelier. I've heard stories about people having a favorite toilet that they had to ship in because all the water-saving features on toilets nowadays just drive them nuts. They don't want to flush 4 times to save water. It's a ridiculous concept, whatever. So they've got this massive flushing toilet from Canada. This is a real story. I'm not getting caught up on toilets, I promise you. But they want to take the toilet with them, and they'll replace it with a regular store-bought toilet when they move. These are things that we need to know in advance before we go. The other thing that this does, it's amazing how many people haven't thought about whether they're even going to include the washer and dryer or the fridge. Very, very basic stuff, let alone this concept of fixtures. So as we walk around the house, I'll ask, what about the fridge? What about the washer and dryer? Now, when they realize, man, we didn't even think about those things, by the time they sit down with you, they're thinking, I'm glad I'm sitting with a professional here. Like, I hadn't even thought about all of these things that he's mentioned. So you've established credibility, even if you don't know them, even if they're complete strangers, you have an established credibility before you ever actually sit down with them. And you need to do this before you talk price, because if you're going to sit down and say your home is worth this and you've not even seen their home, it's offensive to people. So that's the third bird that we kill with this one stone of walking through the home. Now, we've met the family, we've walked through the home, we've probably killed 15-20 minutes here. So now we've got about 40 minutes left to do our listing presentation. And this is that stuff that you've prepared. Now remember, this isn't just time, you don't have 40 minutes to talk. So if you're practicing this at home, this isn't you talking to somebody for 40 minutes. This is you sitting down with them and having an interactive conversation. I love your home, Andrew. Tell me what it is. Tell me why you're moving. You know, what's the goal here? Oh, I've got a new job here. Okay, when does that new job start? Are we on a timeline? Is there a time crunch? Because that's important information when we choose to list this home. Are we going for top dollar, or do we have to have it sold by this date? You know, and maybe it's, you know, if I can get this much, then I'll sell it. If I can't, then I'm not even concerned. Okay, good. That's good information for us to have. But I need that information. And so I need to make this interactive. And the way that I phrase that is you need to care about people. You need to talk to them, find out what's important to them. We can't just sit down and talk to them with our presentation. By the way, if I stop sharing here, how many of you guys by raise of hands, and if you're not sharing your screen, I get it, but you can still, in the reactions button down at the bottom, you can click that to raise your hand as well. How many of you have pulled comps and you see at least $100,000 spread from the high end to the low end of comps? Almost every time, right? Which ones are you using? So we need to have a discussion with people about why we're using the comps that we use. Now, when I do this, I incorporate this into every listing presentation that I do. And a lot of new agents come in and they're like, hey, we need 3 comps. No, you don't. Who said you got to have 3 comps? Well, that's what appraisers do. Yeah, they've got to have 3 comps. You don't. In fact, I like 9. Here's why I like 9 comps. Okay. I like 3 of the very high end. So I'll go to the highest price point because I haven't been in their home. I don't know it yet. Maybe it's super nice. I'll pick 3 comps from the high end. I'll pick 3 comps from the very low end, and I'll pick 3 in the middle. Now I've got 3 pages to review with them that are important. And so when I show up to their home, if it's in perfect condition, if it's gorgeous, then I'm going to have that conversation with them. If they've got a troubled teenager that's punched a hole in every wall in the house, I'm going to have a different conversation with them. But it's going to be honest. I'm going to say, you know what? Here's what the high end is. Because of these issues, you're more down here. Now, here's one of the reasons that I have this conversation with them is because realtors, some play games, some don't know any better. And so I want to be able to address all of those. So the game players, these are the ones that are very experienced. They show up, you know, I sell 250 homes a year. That's more than anybody else in my market. Nobody's as good as me, right? And I guarantee I'll sell your home in 2 months or less, or 1 month or less, and we'll get this price, and don't believe anybody else. Okay. And then they tell you the price, and it's typically low. If they're doing a guaranteed sales program, average days on market is 60 days, and they're guaranteeing 30 days or less. They're doing it because they're pricing it low, and they're convincing people to list with them because of their pedigree. Basically, I sell so many homes, I'm the only one you should trust. All right. And I think that's a strategy, and I don't think they're putting their fiduciary duty in mind, because fiduciary duty says, hey, we're going to disclose everything that we know to help you make a good decision. Is that the best decision for them? You know, if they need to sell it in 30 days, great. Let's list it down there and we'll get it sold. But what if they're of that other camp that says, hey, I want to get the most that I can get because I'm going to be retiring from here and I'm going to be living on a fixed income, and I really need to be able to buy my next house and get out of debt. You know, so I want to hold out and try to get top dollar from it. The other camp is brand new agents. Brand new agents are making an innocent mistake where they come in and they check comps, and they think, in order to win this listing, I'm going to pull the 3 highest comps. Now, I've interviewed lots of sellers and it works. Okay. You pull the 3 highest comps, you sit down with them and say, I'm going to get 800 for your home. And they're thinking, everybody else we talked to told us 750 or 700. This guy's telling us 800. Let's hire him. Here's the problem. Does the home sell at 800? Does it? No. So if the home doesn't sell at 800, now this poor new agent who's struggling is putting money into his marketing, money that he doesn't have yet, okay, because he hasn't earned a commission yet. So he's throwing money into marketing. He's throwing his time into it. Eventually, he has to come back, and he usually hasn't been well trained on how to do price reductions. So he's coming back hat in hand saying, I don't know what's going on. It's not selling. We need to do a price reduction. That's awkward for him. It's frustrating for the sellers. Not only does he not earn a commission, but he doesn't get repeat business or referral business from that client either. So this is why I call it a rookie mistake. All right. So if I'm meeting with somebody and they say, I want to try listing it up here, and I'm telling them, hey, you're valued at 750 and they want to sell it at 8, they say, you know, we can try it. Okay. But we'll try it for 2 weeks. If we don't get any calls, then that's a clear sign right there that we're overpriced. Okay. And the key thing here is that you're going to know, no matter what we do, you're going to know that I've left no marketing stone unturned. I have done everything to market your home, and we'll go into our marketing plan in detail. I've done everything I can to market your home. If we're not getting calls on it, it's because it's priced too high, because people are shopping on the internet. It's very easy to see when I'm looking at 800,000, I'm getting all of these features at all these other homes. I'm not getting that with your home. So I'm simply not going to call and even bother to see it. All right. So when I sit down with somebody and I have this conversation, I say, hey, there's 3 different ways of thinking. Some people are going to try to get your house priced low so they can sell it fast. Some people are going to tell you your home is worth a whole lot more than it is to try to win your business. And I'm here to simply tell you the truth. And then we can pick whatever strategy you want. So I've got these 3 different sets of comps. Now let's sit down and have a discussion about what your needs are and how we can meet those needs together. Okay. So that is the listing appointment, that listing presentation. Now, so we're going to sit down and ask which plan fits their needs the best. And here's a couple of options that I did. Okay. I had talked with a local mover. And for that 1% price point, I knew how much they charged to move somebody. I could pay for moving services for them. These are for the people that want to get spoiled a little bit. So I'd get to the end of my presentation and I'd say, okay, I have a couple of different options for you. Here they are. Which one fits your needs the best? Now, the reason I came up with this is because I felt very awkward getting, well, first of all the trainings that I'd gone to were people using the close, the ABCs of closing, which are always be closing, right? The real aggressive used car, hit them hard closing pitches, you know, where you almost treat people like they're stupid if they're not signing on the dotted line right then and there. I don't like that aggressiveness. It's never resounded with me. I don't like doing it to other people. I also don't like the weak approach where I feel like I'm asking girl out for my very first date ever. Oh, so do you like me? You know, do my goofy laugh. And no, I don't like any of those things. What I do like is giving people choices. So we sit down and say, here's a couple of options for you. Which one of these fits your needs the best? And then they look to each other and say, you know what, I kind of like this. And remember last time you moved, honey, and your back was out for 3 months, and, you know, let's just do the moving services. And then they turn to me and they say, okay, this is what we like. And I say, fantastic. Here's the paperwork that we need to do to move forward. Okay. Now, what I like to do is close before we talk price. Here's the paperwork that we need. And they'll say, well, we don't even know what price. I said, yeah, that's the discussion we're going to have right now. And that's when I pull out the comps. They've already decided at this point they're going to hire me. Let's just pick our price now. Okay. So tell me what your needs are, what's going to happen. I've got 3 different sets of comps. Let's pick the price, but they should be picking me not based on price. They should be picking me because I'm the agent that's going to do the job for them, right? I'm the one that is shooting straight with them. I'm not holding back. I'm going to say, hey, your teenagers punched all these holes in the walls. You're not going to, you know, these higher end comps that I've pulled, they don't fit your home. They know it already, but some other realtor that they've interviewed with already told them they'd get 800 for it. They're not going to get 800, right? We need to have these conversations with them. And so because I'm being honest with them, they actually respect that. They appreciate it a little bit more. So we need to do all of this in an hour. We're going to greet and meet the family, walk through the home with a clipboard. We've got a 40-minute presentation that includes interaction with them, not just us talking. And by the end of it, we're signing paperwork. Now, what paperwork do we need to sign? Well, we've got our exclusive right to sell listing agreement. We're going to get that one signed. What about seller's disclosures? Okay, Utah seller's disclosure is like, what, 17 pages now? Something like that. Went from 6 to 17, I think. Anyways, I'm going to leave that with them. I don't need to fill that all out right now. Okay. What about pictures? Do I need to get pictures tonight? Usually not. Usually they're not ready for that. And so I'm going to tell them, all right, we're going to sign the paperwork tonight, but we need a couple of weeks to get this ready to go to market. So sometimes I'll usually come prepared with an addendum to the listing agreement that says we're active immediately, because I don't want to do the follow-up stuff. They say, you know what, we do want to list, but we're not ready to go right now. We need a week or two, maybe a month. We want to get through the holidays. I say, great, we're here right now. Let's sign the paperwork. We'll just add an addendum saying that I don't start any marketing until January 4th. We're through the holidays. Things are cleaned up. You're not stressful. We're hitting the ground running. Meanwhile, between now and January 4th, we can get a lot of stuff done. Like we can get these seller's disclosures filled out. We can get some beautiful pictures of the home. We can be all ready to go so that when January 4th comes around, we're hitting this marketing hard. Okay. Does that make sense? So here's what we need to do. Every one of us needs to either have a listing presentation ready to go where you can just go in and you can edit some of those details. That's your marketing plan. Of course, you're going to have different comps for everybody, but your marketing plan, what you do for people, that should be rock solid, right? That's a part of your plan. We went over those task plans, the checklist and everything. You should already have that in place. So that's step one of your homework, is have your listing task plan and under contract task plan ready to go so that you can communicate to them, this is what I'm going to be doing for you. This is the value that I'm bringing to the table. All right. And so that presentation is saved, or if you're using a software like KVCore, get in and learn it. Okay. Run a couple of these, learn how to, make the tweaks and the adjustments, make it pretty, get your logo in there, get your picture in there, whatever you need to do, get that homework done and make it work. The next thing that you need to do for your homework is, once you've got a listing presentation and you've got your task plans all put together, just understand that for this next month, we're in December right now. There's a lot of people that aren't going to want to move forward with it. Okay. During the holidays, there's a lot of people that don't want people coming through their homes, which it's just a stressful time already. And so they're going to want to put things off. Just know that you can sign a listing agreement. It's effective today. Just add an addendum saying we're not going to start any of our marketing until after the new year. You don't necessarily have to put your business on hold through this holiday. You can actually be taking some progressive steps forward with it, and you don't have to wait for the new year. So people that you're talking to, they're like, yeah, we're thinking of selling our home this year. You know what? I'd love to sit down and talk with you right now, because there's some really good things we could do right now while things are a little bit slower over the holidays. There's some really good things we can do to get prepared and ready to go. So I'd still love to chat with you. But don't fall into that trap of perpetually calling people back, and then they're not answering, and you're like, oh man, maybe they're sick of hearing from me. Maybe they're not my friends after all. I don't know. No, they're sick. They got food poisoning. They're on vacation. They're just overwhelmed. They lost their phone. There's so many different reasons why people don't call back. So try to avoid falling into that trap, which is why when we sit down and meet with them, the goal is to walk out with a signed agreement. We don't want to fall into that calling back forever routine. All right. Any questions for me? Why do we need to do an addendum? Okay, good question, Brooke. So when we sign a listing agreement, it says it's effective today. And then we've got separate rules, like, for example, the MLS. I believe it's a national rule, the Clear Cooperation Policy, that says anytime we do any form of marketing whatsoever, it has to be available on the MLS within 24 hours. Right? Andrew, is that same rule back there for you? Okay. So if we take the listing today, I need to be very clear. I'm not doing any marketing on it for a month. That's why we would use that addendum. Or I'm not going to do any marketing on it for 2 weeks. Like, we need time to get the house cleaned up. We're going to do a, for photos, like, we're not ready right now. We've got a few projects. We're going to finish painting. We're going to take a whole bunch of stuff to the dump or to the Goodwill or whatever, and then we'll be ready. Okay, great. Let's sign it today. but we'll just add this addendum. That way they don't have the pressure of, okay, well, we don't want to sign tonight because we're just not ready. Like, we'll sign it when we're ready. This addendum takes all the pressure off of them and says, okay, I'll wait till, we'll wait a month. By the way, at least in Utah, we passed a law that says you have to begin any work within a year, because there were companies that were coming around and saying, hey, we'll loan you $300. We'll give you $300, but we have the right to sell your home at any time in the future. I don't know if you guys heard about that. It was a big national thing. Anyways, it was interesting. What date do you put on the exclusive right to sell? Well, it's effective today. I always want it to be effective today. Okay. How long do I extend it out to? It depends on the listing. I do a minimum of 6 months. If this is in the $1 million price range, I'm going to do a year. Okay. I might do 2 years. It all depends on the goal of me and my client. If they say, hey, I'll give you 30 days. No, thanks. I'm not going to put money into this unless you're paying up front for all the marketing. Then I'll do 30 days. Sure. Okay. But if you're just trying to kick the tires at my expense, no. Like, average time on market today is about 2 months. And even if we do hit that and we go under contract within 2 months, we're not going to close for another month. So anyways, kind of hold your ground. I tell people 6 months. I said, we should, average time on market is 2 months, take another month to close. So we'll just pad it and put 6 months. That way you guys don't feel pressured. And if we need to extend it, we can. But 6 months is typically what I do. Does that answer those questions? Okay. Thank you guys for joining me today. Get the homework done. Okay. Get that presentation. Get your checklists in place for listing, for when the listing goes under contract. Get those things in place. All right. That's the work this week. Thanks, you guys.